out there. James here. Sorry, um, I guess my I'm using Wi-Fi, so I guess my Wi-Fi froze up on me, and it had another title about privilege, and I didn't get a chance to really finish it off like I wanted to. And why do I call America in a history of privilege? Why? Because since the beginning of time, since the early part of since it established, it came on the fact that people had the will to come over here on their own terms, even though it's going out of a situation that was mainly there was a lot of politics in the countries of Europe, but they had the privilege to come over here to enjoy and make new boundaries and land. And when they got over here to America, I mean, they were treated with respect and dignity, and basically it was a language barrier between the natives and the Europeans, but they was able to work it out, and the natives taught them how to certain things, how to survive on how the way they turn, and even some to some point they even had relationships with each other, and some even intermarried with the natives, and therefore you had another portion of people that out of the people that came from Europe that they come bringing religion, and they came with religion, they came like a missionary, and so they try to impart their ways, but at the same time they they brought so not so nice diseases to the people of the natives that execute and take over and depopulate. Privileged people do this. The same privilege, the certain groups of European groups went over into Africa, brought over a group of people by over a quarter of a probably close over a quarter of a million people. And on the way over, they had the boats, they had them in chains, and they did everything unimaginable thing to them once they got them to the shores of America. There was no justice, there was no law for the slave. They were up under privilege. They could control another human being, they could take his wife, they could take his child, they can they can and they can just destroy this human being, take his self worth away, and out of the people they have oh that's sad man. We could think that. They have basically robbed them of their legacy, robbed them of their language. Privilege did this. Privilege used them as property. Privilege used them as subhuman. That even though that they're a fellow human being on the planet, that even the four-legged animals would had a better treatment than these people. Privilege was allowed to do this. Privilege was told them that they couldn't be equally educated. They can equally exist in decent conditions. They can equally have the same amount of life as their children was. In fact, they were supposed to serve no matter what they did. And if one of them feel like killing somebody, privilege allowed that. The law at that time in early America allowed privilege to do that. And no one didn't say any. There was no justice because these people were three-fifths of a human being, the same way they did to the natives. And when they got them smallpox, and the government execute them and make them go across the lands called the trails of tears. Privilege did this. Privilege also let them have undivided land that they obtained legally in this country. Privilege did this. Privilege also did this to the slave. So after a certain amount of time, there was an industry built off of backup slaves. and privilege just gave them a couple pennies for hours and hours of work in the sun to make the South what it was. Privilege did that. Privilege also, so but when there was a conflict along the way because there was a certain group of people felt like that God told them that there's a people that being wrong. Privilege didn't want to let go, and that slavery was wrong. So descendants of the slave that you can count on us, you can rely on us. We are like your parents. So you turn against us, it's like you turn against your parents, even though they were like your technically like your masters. Privilege led to this mindset. Today, it still remains in some of the descendants of the slave that still live in the South. They still have a sort of a, they still have that. And it was in his, so time moves on. At 20 years after slavery, centuries after slavery, somewhere along the way, they would call segregation. Privilege wanted this. Privilege wanted the Negro, what they call the Negroid, do not intermix with the others. Privilege said it because it's going to be a conflict. There's going to be some kind of conflict, and we don't really want to have the impression that they're equally that, and they maintain the mindset that these people are not people. They're not equally to be a people to you. They're equally to be under you. They're subjugate to you. Privilege did this. Privilege also privilege kept going on. And so anytime with privilege can someone out of the group of privilege can kill somebody at will. They can lynch them on false charges and lynch them from the trees of the South in different places. Privilege was allowed to do this. There was no law to protect the descendant of a slave. Privilege was allowed this. This is history. This is actual history of this. And they were hung up. There are pictures of men who were my color and darker that were hung from the trees. And there were families who were able to show their children and laugh at and pick at it. And after the men gasped and died at the hands of the rope, they came along and chopped his testicles off. They did everything imaginable and they took it as a souvenir. Privilege was allowed to do this. Privilege was allowed to do this. So the same mindset kept rising in the parts. So here come different privilege. There was a law written that these same people cannot be. When they get on the bus, they have to get in the back of the bus, train, or taxi. They cannot. They spend their money. If they make an illegal kind of money, and at that time throughout this country, in the early part of the 20th century, that the privilege said that they cannot be access to things. They had to put them on the outside. Privilege did this. But when privilege looked over and seen that the descendants of the slaves, what we call the Negroes, blacks, they can say that the blacks, they saw that they were progressing. Privilege didn't like that. Why these Negroes is having their own? But they was the one that subjugate the law. They made the law. Privilege made the law for you to basically say separate. So any group of people you separate is got to find a way to make their own. If they're not being wanted and being liked, so they're going to make their own way around to uplift themselves, and that's what the American Negro did. This is what they don't tell you, but it's in the history books. This is in America. So the descendants of the slaves had their own businesses throughout the country because there was segregation all over throughout the country, from the east to from the north to the south to the east to the west. They had to sit in separate trains. They had to sit in separate buses. They had to they had to go in separate neighborhoods, basically. Even it was only maybe certain places in the north that they were integrated with different immigrants around New York City and maybe some parts of California. Well, then again, in parts of California, there was segregation. In Vegas, it was a segregation. Yes, gonna find out. There was segregation when celebrities was out there. Um, there were artists and musicians, and they had natural talent, actually out of descendants of the slaves. They had natural musical talent. They had acting talent. They were natural, and they can control the crowd. But someone decides during the times in the early 20s and 30s to mock them, because if you paint a picture of them, paint them like they're non-intelligent, make them seem like they're goofy, and they're just a joke of they're a joke of the world. They're clowns. They're just something to be poked at and made fun of. Something that just be big lips and big eyes. It's something that you don't want to be connected to something like this, because it would be too present. Privilege did this. Privilege did this in Hollywood, and there was a group of people that did this out of us. We would say out of a certain religion, but they came from this religion that they infiltrate. So they put their insecurities, inferiority over these people. What all these people wanted to do, just a rise above the occasion. But privilege says, no, you are at our disposal. You are not ill human. So we're gonna mock you to the rest of the country. We're gonna mock you to the rest of the world. Okay. Then we're gonna decriminalize you and put you in a position of it. This is what they did to the American Negro. This is just one of the groups of people that they did. There was other groups of people that they done this to, but particularly the American Negroes stand out, because the other groups eventually they pay reparations to. And they apologize. They sorry. They told the American Negro for 400 years, which is the American blacks, that you don't deserve no apology. You don't deserve nothing. You don't deserve no reparation. You don't deserve nothing, because it's over. It's in the past. It's in the past. But other groups of people along the way, they got they sorry due. And the fact this was so slick when they did with the natives, it's okay, since the government gonna pay you reparation, we're gonna still have our hand in it. We're gonna put casinos on your reservations, so they can be employed and everything like that. And I can imagine it probably was conflicted among the natives of that time, the different reservations of the land, because the elders saw something was going on with this, but the younger generation, it was probably a clash in certain reservations across this country. But when we come back to the American Negro has been trying to pull his upside as Will says, but there was false charges against the American Negro. American blacks have tried to rise in education, and they invented things that were most of the stuff have been created today. But according to the privilege don't want you to know that American blacks have the equally or the capacity to create all these magnificent things. They'll give them a few credibility, but they don't. Privilege don't want of America don't want you to know that they've done this. And it was up to privilege. Privilege is going to try to wipe the American black out, even out of their own conjunction of music. They'll build history. They'll try to make them as a history of a people, and they'll replace them with the ones that the American blacks have always, since the beginning of time, have invented conjunctions of entertainment, and they're very good at education and politics. Very good things. But according to privilege, the American blacks taught by a system, by some false scientists, to say that their bone structure is a lot different than any other human being on the planet. So therefore, something malicious about these people that we must denigrate, and they consistently denigrate. And of all the people, they always come after this particular race of people, denigrating them. I mean, just desecrating them. And every time they rise up, and then during the part of their time in the early 20th century, there was a man that tried to rise up and saying he was from the Caribbean. He saw what the suffering of the slaves were going here that had the same skin complexion as he is, but they had a different dialect because some were taken to the Caribbean. Now, why it's been complaining now? The privilege been complaining. Hold on, the privilege been complaining about it. There's too many of them. It's way too many of them. So we had to figure out a way to cut their population down. This also comes similar to what you would see in the Bible. So what can we do to slow down the privilege? Saying what can we do? Well, they're very good. They're very musical people and religious people. The American Negro is the very falutin spiritual individual. So this woman named Margaret Sanger came along and saying, advertised birth control, but her method of birth control is abortions. That was her way to maintain, and it was an agreement that that she would go down to, and she had to put on the face of a Christian woman, and she played a part, but her heart was not with God whatsoever. She have caused this blood on her hands. For the past, she had caused over 40 probably million deaths since the time she left. Until this day, privilege give her an honor, and a certain party gives her an honor, saying that she was one of the greatest women in the world. You know who that party is. Anyway, so they try to destroy it, people. People try to rise. So this man, what I mentioned earlier, tries to rise and say that if people affect your chondra, let me take them back over to the continent and let them get reacquainted with history of what they was absorbed. How is this man of color? The government, the U.S. government did this. How did you come up with this? Who is this man? Who? Because he's like a leader. It's almost like they treat him. There's old footage treating this man called Marcus Garvey. I mean, this guy's like a king, like he had power. He had representation. How is this that this black man had this much power? There's got to be something wrong. Is he running some kind of terrorist organization or something like that? So the FBI went after. Now, Marcus Garvey in his writing said, "Hey, we wrote to the American Negro and saying this is the way you've been treated. You're not being treated fair, equally, or anything like that. So let's take our ways and let's go build up a civilization." They got him on some false charges. He got thrown in prison. And any African Americans are acquainted with that story. So it's like, okay, so the privileged who are complaining, saying there's too many of them. So a black man said, okay, then let me take a portion out of them since they did, and they jailed him on some conspiracy. So it's like, okay, he was trying his own way because the ones who choose to separate and then didn't like blacks, didn't like Negroes at that time, and really didn't want to live next to Negroes. They didn't want to be around Negroes. They didn't want to be in affiliate with Negroes. And the only good Negro is an invisible Negro. I mean, it's the same mindset as in some places today. As long as you're visible to I choose to make you visible. And when you're visible to me, I want you entertaining me. I want you I want you in sports. I want you in music. I want you making me laugh and acting or something like that. I want you acting like a buffoon. This is to maintain and tell my child this is a buffoon right here. And in some cases, some people look at African Americans like that, who are entertaining because they have a blowout personality. And privilege done this to happen and during the time. So now And there were areas, and after the way when the 50s and the 60s, the 50s had gone along, it was a struggle because there was a struggle between the black class and the white class. And the white class, white wanted to maintain the suburbs when they would live with their black neighbors in the white privileged area. Privileged wanted to go and make their own chondrodra in the suburbs of USA in the 50s and the 60s. So blacks who were working hard, the ones that most of them were never lazy, and they was honest. They paid their taxes and raised their kids right, and did everything consistently with the law to have the equal part like we see today, and still are some today. But the reality of it was, privilege could not stand the stomach to see something that they keep thinking that is a slave that lives right next door to them, because everything that they was taught in their home, that the slave was going to rise above and rob you, steal you, marry your daughter, rape your daughter, and it was this false narrative that was in their head. Privilege was taught this, and that was most American Negroes. That wasn't even they weren't even thinking on that level like that. They wouldn't even think. And some of like a group of people, you don't have a person that commit crime. Like any, I don't know, whether a person is white, they're gonna commit black. But if they're black, they commit crime. But you see, privilege don't want to see that. Privilege always want to look at the opposite of evil, dark people, African features people. And then was even taught in some religion that they believe in a certain part of the Bible that they were cursed. There was even certain religion think that God didn't like black. This was taught. Oh yeah, this was taught. That's why they subjugate themselves. This was also in part what they considered it was in some form of Christianity. So this is the truth. This is in the history. And they had to hurry up and try to race it out in the last 20, 30 years. But they was taught. There was certain organizations that were taught this, that blacks were never, that the American Negro was never, this came up under privilege. But the ones who were in these organizations, they had a disagreement with the philosophy of what they agreed with and how they formed. So these certain organizations moved to different parts of the country that was out west. Now to this day, of course things have changed and everybody's welcome. But it's the thought about the principle early fathers that put that in their book, which they say is connected to the Bible. But people never forget something like that. So the privilege says this. And the privilege is always, if a man with the same complexion as him who's running things and is able to contact them and he stay on cold to cold, face to face, it's all right with privilege. But if privilege had to look at another man of a different chondrodra and code, something psychologically, it messes with him, especially if he have African features and the sense of African features. Because when you think of Africa, you don't think of something like that. They want to think of people that's running around, people running around naked in the woods or something like that, and hunting animals, and don't have no what they compare their ability to by their living standard. That's how they see Africans, unfortunately. You have some people like that. They're not too bright. They bright what they think they're bright, but their reasoning is not even logical. So privilege. But anyway, so privilege. So after that can happen, they jailed the leader. All of a sudden, there was a part of America that the American Negroes were rising. God was giving them the ability, the American Negro, to sing, athletically perform on the football field, the courts, golf, no matter if it's tennis, no matter if it's baseball, basketball. But the same people did not during that time in the 20th century did with privilege say we don't want to see them on the court. Don't integrate them, don't bring those people to the court. So there were people out of a certain religious group try to do that. And they caught heck, man. The American Negro caught heck back in the 40s and the 50s and it's some in the 60s and to part to 70s too. Because here these people, and why you say? Because their logic was that here you bring a whole bunch of people visible when we think we have a condron, we have a mindset to keep them invisible, but now you forcing us to make them visible when we want to put them in invisible. We don't like it. This is what happened in the 20th century. But somewhere along the way, when the American Negro got on stage, when the American Negro got on the field, he did something amazing. Amazing. He got the world's respect athletically. Then, during that time, even before the 40s and 50s, you have parts of Europe that look at the American Negro as some part he's not even ill-human. This is the reason why he's running fast, and they compare them to some kind of animal or something like that. So it put a stigma in people's head that the Black American descendant from African, that they got some kind of animal DNA and stuff like that, which is crazy. Which we know that's stupid, that's silly, but there's people that feel like that and they conjure like that. And it's basically, it's just pure human ability. And nothing to do with being connected to no other species. But that's what ignorance says. These American Negro who are Black have been over and serving wars and fought in wars. There have been made movies of them that had rescued other soldiers, the American Blacks. Privilege didn't want to show this part, but till 50, 60 years later, American privilege finally let them get their contracts, and they do. Give them their medals when half of them were gone, when half of them were dead. This is what privilege does, because like how are these gifted people was able to get into the military and perform anything that you trained him to do, he was able to do it with perfection. And out of a group of individuals of the American Negro, they was able to do things that was astounding, was able to defeat the enemies of different parts of countries around the world. But yet, when he came back to his own country, he still had to go back into the invisible to be visible. This is what the American Negro had to go through throughout his time, even coming back from the military. American Negroes, privilege says, give back, American Negro. Don't get too uppity. Get back. Privilege says this. Go back into your own neighborhood. Go back to your own whatever. He's coming back with trauma like most veterans do in wars from all walks of life. And while he was in the service, even some of the children of the privilege was even in the service, exercising their race and carrying out. Here is the crazy part: to be you coming out of a country and still executing your race over these people, and saying and telling other groups of people when they land to shores of different countries, stay away from them American Negroes. They have tails in the back of their butt. You're telling us that they're from what? They're not even human. They got tails. They were the joke. So even in the midst of coming out, even in the midst of war, this is what happened. This is what privilege did. The children of privilege did this. I call them the children of idiots, but they have a privileged mindset. This is summed up. Now we have it. Now here we go. We fast forward again. So out of sports, military, music, and different genres, as the American Negro still is trying to advance like of the other nationalities, he still is being subjugated. He's being still being pushed back, pushed back, pushed back. He tried to separate, segregate, separate themselves and try to get. Therefore, it is put among his own division of people to divide and put something and divide between shades of color, divide between who would have and have nots among the American Negro, and keep them separate. And privilege want them to do that so they can maintain power. That's what privilege wanted to do, and so far it has succeeded because long privilege have their power to keep separate apart and keep them distant by class, keep them distant by education, keep them distant by to give a little economics. Who cares about the rest perish? And that's been always been the mindset that privilege have always had when it came to certain other groups of people too. This is what's going down. This is what going. This is the truth. America needs to be straight up honest with themselves. And she's spoiled. She's spoiled. America is spoiled in certain ways. And now people are starting to see it. People are not liking what they see across the world. And this is what this the mindset. So when they come over here, other groups of people come here. They when they've been here for a while, they see the true Americans. They see the other side of different individuals in America. Now, when Americans are in their country, they're giving the world. So some Americans carry their privileged mindset over there, and they cater to their privilege. In some cases because their money, their finances, and some countries that don't cater to their mindset. I mean, I can't believe this. It was only just a prank or something like that. But it was apparently someone didn't find it funny, and they just go to whine and cry, and then something happened, and person get locked up or suffer some kind of punishment. Privilege thing like that's not fair. That's not right. Tell the U.S. government to go over there. This could be one of your kids over there, but privilege, they don't understand. Not everybody abides to privilege. Not everybody in parts of the world abide to privilege because their citizens don't abide to privilege. So why should they give you, when you step in their land, their privilege? This is the truth. And it's the mindset. It's the Western mindset that some people here in this country carry when they go over to different parts of the country. And people start seeing it. People, even though they may not understand the language, but the body language ain't looking good. The mindset of your attitude towards individuals ain't looking good. It's like, this is the way these Americans act. They need to go back. It's the truth. But so what you see, come from our president Trump and many others before him, is the mindset of privilege. It's the mindset of I'm better than you, and I'm arrogant to you. And for someone like Trump, he can't even hide it. He can't even hide the arrogance. But believe me, there's a whole lot of people like Trump in this country. It's a whole lot of people. And even with the little business that they have, they think that they high and fluting. And they just have this awesome arrogance about themselves. They just have this arrogance that they know they got the law on their side, they got justice on their side, and they got the income to cover. This is the truth. Nobody don't want to talk about this, but it is what it is. And so it's something really to think about. And that's why the problems that we have is that we don't respect one another. We don't know how to respect one another. Morality, in some cases have gone out the window. And you have some people that have The mindset is their way, and they're using to get in their way. And then when they get to some place where you go talk crazy to folks, that could be the end of your life right then and there. And that's a humbling experience. No one's going to put up with that mindset of privilege when you go other places. And clearly, that's what we're seeing today. It's clearly what we've seen was representing us. And that's why we under so many problems here in this country, because you have people in privileged positions to feel like they can control things. They got it right. They got the brains, they got the control, and they can't even control their own household because their kids are spoiled and they come from a spoiled environment. It comes out. And you spend time with some individuals, you'll see what I'm talking about. And you just stand back and observe. And the good God Almighty will show you some things about some people. You think they got it going on, they really ain't got it going on. They have to put on a persona like they do. This is the truth. This is the God's honest truth. Why some people do what they do. So privilege is it's a mindset. In America, it's just we're getting our wake-up call. And we turn against one another like I don't know what. And people are just laughing at us, man, because it's just we don't believe in moving on like Europe. Some parts of Europe have moved on. People know how to put things in the past and heal from the past. Let the pride go from the past. Some do, not all, but some do. That's what they got advantage over. The Europe and people with different backgrounds can get along because they know how to put the past together. But when you hit the slave shores of America, you take on the American mindset. You are taught the sooner or later not to trust other nationalities. You're taught not, and it started with privilege. Privilege showed it, and showed it on their own networks. And so that's what, but it's not what it really is until this. And thank God for social media to show the other side. Because if you've seen it from the mainstream, you would think that's what it was really about. But it's a bunch of privileged people behind the scene making themselves look like their righteousness and making the others look like their unrighteousness. And then some people are like that. And so when people get to this country, they get a reality check. And now, so really, Trump is bringing that unreality. That people, and most people wish they want to stay in the dark. You have people here that wish they could have kept up the persona. They wish they kept up the privilege. And, they don't like being. They want to have their issues against other people and keep it in the closet. They don't like it being exposed. There's people here in this country, and they're in a privileged position. They don't really want to. They have a perception that they don't want too many people in their company. They don't want too many people on their property. They don't want too many people, period. Especially when they feel like they're not adequate to be in the same level like they are. You have some people like that. And they in some high can make some decisions. And it's not till someone catch them saying something out of line, or you hear somebody on a recording saying something completely out of line, then it's like, I'm sorry, well, it's too late now. All that is hidden is coming to surface. Everything is evil and deep in man's heart is coming to surface. But the people in privileged positions don't like it, but God is making it be exposed. That's why they can't believe it. That's why to some people it's a shock. Because stuff that they used to can do 40, 50, 60 years ago, they can't do it now. Things that they could do, they can exercise, and the law will work in their favor. Certain things will work in their favor, but now it's slipping. and it's slipping away from the people who are privileged. They like being privileged. They like being comfortable. They want to be around comfortable and people that look like them or people that will accept their ways. Because and who people think like them, people who look like them. Mainly is what they look like. And even though one person can think another person's a jerk, whatever, but they come into an agreement. When it comes to us and the rest of the world, they code up. They code up. And you can see it. You can see it over a period of time, you can see it. And it's one of the things you learn about when you live in this country. Um, Over time, you see it. You're going to see some negative things, and that's going to. And I wish that people, when they come to this country, they don't understand it because it's a whole different country, different way. It's like, why is America like this? Why is Americans acting like this? And da 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 da. Baby, it's always been like this. Man, it's always been like this since the beginning of time. Some maybe you might have met one or two or three people because they were open-minded and they had sense enough to know because they wanted to change themselves and they know that who come to your country and come to your part of the world. See, those people, they understood that there's something different because it might have changed something in their mind. But when you come back over to the States, yeah, we got people from all walks of life here. We do. We got people from different languages and different people from different around the world. But the main people that want to maintain the power is the privilege. The people who have the hidden prejudice, they want to still maintain that hidden prejudice. And they trying to tell the ones who want to bring other people from different places and other people are coming to the shores of America. They say, wait a minute, it's too much. You're gonna knock me out my privileged position. Now I'm gonna have to have two, not have one or two of what these people who I choose to see, who I choose to want to be around. You bring in more of these people and you bring them towards my way and my neighborhood in my background. And that makes me comfortable. And that's what's going on in America. America is a certain demographic of people that want to maintain the past. When it comes to the people, where they come from a suburban, all American code, which code white, upper class area. Not about all us all get together, not other people. Don't bring in 500,000 those other people. Just bring in a few. Just bring in a select. It is what it is. Privilege. If so, it was up to privilege. They'll find different ways to lock them out. When they're controlling the institutes of credit bureaus, when they close the institutes of banking and things like that, they can find some way to lock you out. Privilege can do that. Privilege know how to pick up the phone and talk from corporate to corporate. Privilege can do that. Privilege can do that. Just because it's on one, it don't mean that people have to abide by law. And how can you prove it? You can't catch them saying on tape. How can you prove it? It's not. That's discrimination. Yeah, but they can, they can find something else to hold something against you. Even if like a person like me, could do something, it can be discriminated against me against housing, and they'll throw up another objection. Well, how is credit? And I can have perfect references and everything else. But in a land of America, there's always going to be some tape to hold you back in some type of way, or to flip it and make a law. It has been done. This has been done in the past. It's been done in the present. But people who are privileged, they don't have to go through something like this. People who look like privilege don't have to go through something like this. Now, if you person to come over with wealth from another part of the world, you will never know that. You will never see it. Because, and again, you could be part of that privilege too and not even know it. But that's what you see, and then it confuses you because you don't understand that now that there's an equal amount of people saying, hey, there's certain people that got to go because they have broken the law of being here too long illegally here, because we have to maintain that status. We have to maintain a certain status here in America. That's what it is we got to maintain a certain color ratio here. We want to know who you are when we put you on the government papers. We want to know what color are you, or what's your nationality when you get on the job. We want to know more about your nationality, your ethnic background, your religious background, than we want to know you as a character. It is what it is. But we're not racist, though. But if that's the case, and someone raised the point one time, then why do you put the question of race on the category? I can say, are you American citizen, or are you European, or are you Asian, or are you African citizen? But in America, it comes down, are you black, are you white, are you Indian, are you Hispanic, are you this, are you that? And it's like, why all that matter? Oh, it's just wonderful government record, because psychologically, America has an underlying a race problem. Because if it was, it wouldn't have to be described as that. Now, if someone commits a crime or doing something like that, you have to describe a suspect. And that's when you have to use a description of what the person looked like. But when you go to a job or something on a category, race is always brought up, not your nationality, right? I mean, not your original origin. If you don't have a different ethnic origin at all, man, it gets even technical from there. It's the truth. So that's why it's kind of funny. We don't see no color. Look, we don't see no color. Yes, we do. We see color here. Oh, yes, we see color. And as soon as you step into the scene, you can see it in people's face. They see color. Just by their reaction, their response. And it's 9 chance out of 10, they see color. And they see one of the people that they don't feel comfortable with, that really bothers them. And don't let them speak a different language, because if you speak in some place a different language, people get upset about that. Why you speak your native language, even though you're not even talking to them? Privilege don't want you doing that. Privilege wants you to speak English all the time. It's among your own family members. They come out public, they be speaking English. Because people, why? Why are people like that? Because they just got to know. They want to know. It's just they nosy by nature. Just want to know. What are you? Where you come from? What's your plan and purpose here? And it's like, wow, really? It's the truth. It's what it is. What it is. And people who are in privileged position, they like that. They like being bigots. They like looking at someone's opposition, because deep down there's some rooted prejudice somewhere in that person that have yet to be told. They have never studied these people. They never read about these people, but they watch something on the news and just go by what they assume. So that's the privilege of what you see today is going on out here. And the perception of it is. And then you have some people in America that want to separate themselves from privilege, because they see that justice is not coming their way, that the law is not going to be in their favor, the court system is not going to be in their favor, only for the privilege. But the privilege can do something, can break the law, and it is made up into a different excuse. Someone who is misfortunate, they don't have that luxury. And then when you point that out, they don't like that being pointed out. But the reality of it is true. Because if you put privilege, don't like to be put in a position of being invisible. They got to be visible. Their voice got to be heard. People have a voice, got, especially if they got a privileged voice, and they'll let you know in a minute. They'll be the first one, be all up in your face. Then you know how privileged that they are, because they never had someone put them in what they call a check or something like that. They just allowed them to just say whatever they want to say. And the only way you put a check if they're going to a court of law, and the judge had to tell them, you don't show, I'm going to throw your butt in jail. But that privilege will still rise up, because that's that defiant, that's the defiant spirit. I'm calling it what it is. It is what it is. And that's how we have been in this country. It's alone. And people are starting to wake up. People are starting to wake up and see what this really thing is all about. That's what all these different beefs are, wars are, and things like that. And if you don't do it our way, we're gonna execute some kind of power. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to power, privilege and power. The whole thing out here right now is privilege and power. We're going through a conflict. It's privilege and power. And most of us in between, we're right in the between of it, being the crossfires of it. And it's really sad. It's really sad that people can't, really sad people can't grow up and see that there's something bigger than them. There's something more in this life and more in time with them. But privileged people, they don't get that part. They think the world revolves around them. I can't stand to be around privileged people. I can't stand it to be around them. Oh, they make you just want to choke them, man. I'm telling you, make you want to choke the mess out of some people, because they just got that condescending, arrogant attitude. And sometimes it's just, I have seen it on the workplace, school, even in some churches. I've seen it. People with that condescending attitude, that they're just arrogant, and they justify in their own prejudice. They justify in their own personality of being that way, and you can't tell them otherwise. Most of the time, I just stay away from those people. I don't even give them time and attention. I don't have time. You don't have time to let people like that lose your soul and salvation. It'll get your nerves rattled up, because they're not worth it. At the end of the day, they're not even worth the sweat off your brow. They're not even worth it. And so, yeah. So that's my version of privilege, America's privilege. Because it's ridiculous. It really is. And it's just until somebody, wake up to reality, things will keep going on and on and on. And that's the truth. Things will keep going on and on and on with people. Because we like, as a country, I think we like being the way some people like being the way we do. In some cases, some people you see when on these reality shows, and some people really are like that. That's why sometimes they're so popular, and that's another thing, that people who are, people like to try to argue with privileged people and just want to debate with privileged people, make them into what they want. But a person with that kind of mindset is already is. It's just like they like being in their own ignorance. Some people like being ignorant. It's very entertaining, and some people like to argue, some people like to fight, some people like to strive. I mean, it's the truth. That's from what I've seen in this world. I learned that some people just like to argue, some people like to fight. But um, yeah, so stay away from. My advice is stay away from people with that mindset. Uh, just stay away from people like that. But that's the history of privilege, of people, in what you see today. Because that's why it's weird when people say, "Why can't it be in the past? Let things be in the past. The past it can't be in the past because there's a reflection of people is going to reflect it in the future. They're always going to keep carrying on that mindset. There's always going to be people out there that carry that mindset of they're better than somebody because of where they come from, where they live at, how much education that they get, what job that they work, how much money that they make it. You're always going to have people like that. And it's just, I think it's everyday thing. It's not just a black or white thing or American. It's all over. It's all over people. People got that kind of mindset. But people who have that kind of mindset, it's best to stay away from them, man. Don't even waste your time with people like that. And try not to even entertain too much. Don't get disturbed in your spirit over somebody that ain't nothing you can do to change it. Because it was like that before, and it's gonna probably be like that to the day they die. And that's true. If something change in their life, if they get a wake up call, well, 9 chances out of 10 people don't. 9 chances out of 10, some people do. A good small percentage of people do, but some people don't. They used to be in their own self. They in their own self worship idol. And history always shown it from the beginning of time. No matter if it's American history or history that's in the Bible, someone's always got to be arrogant and always got to be a pompous. And they ride on privilege. And you see it in the young to the old, to some old, they privilege. And when you figure you get to a certain age, when you get older, you figure some people kind of grow up. Some people never grow up. They could be just as immature in their 50s or 60s as well as somebody in their teens or 20s. And this is the truth. Privilege allowed them to act like that. And they have no shame and they have no embarrassment whatsoever. Yeah, it's just really something. It's just really sad. So that's why we have what we have here. And that's why everything going out of whack. You see people acting crazy. Um, it's insane. You know. So my name is James. I'm sorry I ran on so much, but I just want to give a brief history about the difference between privilege and what is not privilege, and what the history of privilege, I mean, and what you see with the kind of conceited, condescending attitude. So I hope people view this video, and if you like it, if you don't like it, that's fine. If you find it's kind of long, drag, that's fine too. Just glad you came and viewed it. And so that's my interpretation of history and of privilege and the history of it, where it comes from. And if we don't change as a people, it's going to hurt us in the end. So that's what I say about that. But you all have a good morning and good evening, and I hope you be blessed and take care and think about what I say, and just don't let people get under your skin. All right, then. You take care and be blessed. Stay, stay there. Till next time, my name is James. Take care.